Supposed to pull the strings. If you game, that's in your mouth, I should take more play. Finna play society, yeah, man. All I do is black roll out, yeah, just this, man. Can't take us down on this shit, man. You shake that, check the stats, man.
Okay, we are live, February 9th, 2025. I missed the Super Bowl. My apologies. I should probably apologize in advance for missing the next 9/11. Whenever it hits, in all likelihood, and this is just how things are, things get a little matrixy. Things get very tricky around these times. I won't be surprised if I miss it, so apologize in advance here. So let's see here. Let me open up chat, and we're going to open up phones right away. I think we want to have open phones tonight. I missed the game, so I'm going to need someone to fill me in. And thank you for absorbing that for me. You know, I watch bad movies for you all the time. If there's a terrible movie that needs to be reviewed for the purposes of propaganda analysis, I'm always there, front row. Barbie, for example. Wicked. I mean, I've watched a lot of movies that I wouldn't have seen otherwise. All right, let's see here. Joined by Mazel, Tom Smith, Waco Soto. Okay, great. I'm in the process of remodeling the office. You may have noticed that I've been up to some masonry right behind me. Who won the Super Bowl? Yeah, who was playing? I didn't watch it. I watch the people watching it, and I look at the programming from the perspective of an alien anthropologist, examining one of the major, I think, fertility rites of the year. I mean, what kind of ceremony is it? But at a minimum, it's that. Gondola Wish said, I thought the astrologers were saying today was going to be a huge day. A lot of gematria calculators are off. They need to get those things recalibrated. How can they recalibrate those things? I mean, they just... There's so many adjustments. It's like I'm using ancient Chaldean numerology to predict the next Super Bowl. Give me a break. Thank you for watching, so I don't have to. Smarty Pants says cam choppy, but sound okay. I'm choppy. It's not the camera. Did anybody see Kanye West's tirades? He's back on his black skinhead thing. He's posting adult content. I couldn't even see it because I have I have it blocked. So if I'm on Twitter, I don't put something inadvertently on a live stream. But he was on quite a tear for some time, all caps. And I'm a free speech absolutist. I was not offended by anything that he wrote. But I do think they should ban him because of all caps. Like, that's just unsightly and there's no excuse. It looks crazy. You know, caps lock, crazy. It's like cruise control for crazy. But I haven't followed up on his meltdown ever since he got ignored by Musk. Musk is not following Ye. And Ye wasn't even a thing. But he suddenly popped up after he showed up in a manifesto by a black white supremacist school shooter. What's up, Esteban? Thank you for joining. Tom Smith says there's no way Kanye's not controlled op. Yeah, I think he's an actor. I actually think he's playing out a role that he created. In fact, there's this interesting conspiracy theory that came out of, well, Rolling Stones covered it, that connects Elvis to David Bowie to Kanye West. It's pretty intricate, but yeah, the idea here is that he's some kind of character, and we're witnessing his contrived downfall, perhaps. Like Musk, you know, he's likely a pawn in a bigger game, a world stage character and actor. I consider them to be like a reality TV show. And I don't think it's far-fetched to say that a lot of these celebrities are basically reality TV show stars. And they're self-aware. I don't know how much in the know they are about how contrived things are, but I can name a couple of people. Well, one person in particular that kind of rose into a position of like relative fame very quickly, had a lot of access, even meeting the president. I'm talking about Alex Stein, for example. And he got his start in TV show called Cheaters, and he's openly admitted that when he was on the show Cheaters, he had to sign an NDA, which prevented him from telling everybody that every single episode was rigged. It was all reality TV. None of it was people catching their spouses cheating. But he let that slip. And I remember at the time thinking, I detected a little duper's delight. Like he was an insider. And I think a lot of the people who move up in the ranks of entertainment and politics become insiders to the secret knowledge. And the secret knowledge that we, the profane, aren't supposed to know is how much of the mainstream news is quite literally staged. Lucid says reality TV shows were there to initiate us, probably. I think that the advent of reality TV was really to merge real and fake, to blur the distinction between news and the movies. And I think that it was successful because they blur the distinction. And they've done it in every arena here. And I think they also do it with special effects and graphics. I think the terrible CGI that we were subjected to for a long period of time, that wasn't as good as the synthetic, like, for example, using models or miniatures as opposed to completely creating a CGI environment. The real stuff looks realer. It ages better than the CGI stuff. But I think we were conditioned to maybe have lower expectations, visually dumbing us down, making real and fake almost interchangeable. Must be real because it looks so fake. Stuart McKenzie says reality TV is how they recruited Andrew Tate. Yeah, see, he was made for this field. I think a lot of reality TV show stars are perfect for what we're looking at here, which are world stage actors. And the difference is they don't tell you, it's scripted. Andrew Tate's an interesting character. I think he might have lied about a lot of his past. You know, he's the human trafficker that teaches teenage boys how to groom and abuse girls for money. He and his brother, I think they're still on lockdown. But if you recall, his whole downfall started in September 2024 at the same time a movie came out called Speak No Evil. And the movie's antagonist is a paragon of toxic masculinity that they literally based off of Andrew Tate. And the cover had a movie, for the movie poster, had somebody with the finger over the lips, the sign of silence. And it said, "Speak no evil." And I'm thinking, wait a minute here. You've got this, we're talking about Andrew Tate. He looks like Cypher from The Matrix. And Speak No Evil, the movie poster, it's basically him. But anyway, the fact is, his downfall, his arrest, all coincided with the movie about him. Which suggests to me that this entire persona has been fake. You know, I don't even think he owns the 33 Bugattis. He was bragging about his 33 Bugattis, and Greta called him out for being a massive carbon polluter or whatever. And he responded while eating pizza that gave away his location. That's what really was the first domino in the story. But 33 Bugattis should have been your clue. But looking back at it, it appears that maybe those were all rented, if they existed at all. But he was caught by a pizza box. The Frugal Snowbird says, any chance the red brick has a Pink Floyd reference? You know, I kind of think so. I think the brick in the wall has some Masonic import. If you look at the idea of the candidate becoming a stone in the temple of Solomon, it's a kind of an allegory, of course, but I think that there's maybe some symbolism in the wall. Bricks in the wall would be crisis actors, politicians, anybody with an NDA that keeps them on the side of the PSYOP entertainment complex's lie, the big lies. Starboy Devoid says, K West written on the sign on the cover of Ziggy Stardust's album came out 5 years, 8 days before Kanye was born. Yeah, so that's the story here, is that David Bowie's album, Ziggy Stardust, came out in 1972. There was a song called 5 Years, And that song predicts the arrival of the Savior, Starman, which is a perfect anagram for Mr. Satan. But K West, of course, and some have connected that to Kanye West because he was born in 77. And I found a number of connections that corroborate with this. Interestingly, of course, David Bowie's birthday is Elvis's birthday. There's a lot of overlap here. But this prophecy, which was described in Rolling Stones, so I'm not the originator of this, but the idea was that there was some kind of like almost like a role that Elvis portrayed that was handed to Bowie and is being handed to Kanye West. West being the inheritor of it, this was something that was inferred from David Bowie's posthumous release, Black Star. And the song Black Star in this conspiracy is actually a reference to Ye. And him being a big star in this sense, he's compared himself to Elvis. I don't see it. However, interestingly enough, when they were filming the movie Elvis, they constantly played the song Black Skinhead by Ye. You can look it up. The director said they hyped up the actor to perform Elvis songs by playing Ye's track Black Skinhead. Like, that's crazy to me. But anyway, the connection here is that Bowie and Elvis and Ye all represent this entity, the savior, the starman, the man who fell to earth. And I think there's something to it. And Elvis dying in 77 had some correlation to this. And there was a new version of the movie The Man Who Fell to Earth. And if you don't know the story, it's about this alien who lands on Earth because their planet suffered from climate change and they didn't have any water. And he's here to save us. And he starts this like world corporation, which is like Amazon. He lands in, so he's an alien, but he starts a corporation and works through a front person. And then he becomes very wealthy so he can buy his way back to Mars or wherever he came from. And that's why they put David Bowie, who played the character, the alien, that's why they put Bowie's effigy in the Tesla Roadster that they sent into space. Now, maybe I'm mandoozled on this, but they originally said they were sending the car to Mars. That's why One-Eyed Jack's song says, "Did you drive your car to Mars? Do you sell fake space?" Because originally it was going to Mars. But then the environmentalists had some kind of outcry about how the bacterium, maybe, I don't know, in some way the car would kill any Martian life. So we couldn't take the risk. And suddenly they said the trajectory was, no, it's actually making a big loop around the solar system. But I seem to remember Mars, like distinctly. I thought they were going to crash it into Mars, but I could be wrong. But there was a new version of The Man Who Fell to Earth, and the new version had a black actor in place of David Bowie. And the actor, I don't recall his name, Chiwetel something. He was also born in 1977. And if you look at the beginning of the movie, he lands in this crater, and he steps out of it, and there's fire behind him, and he looks like he's on fire. Very reminiscent of the scene at Donde where Ye walks out of the burning house on fire. And I didn't watch the entire show, but it ends where I think the main character, the man who fell to earth, is going to Seattle. But we'll have to do a deep dive into this subject here. It has to do with the background, of course, this Ye persona, which we're talking about. And if you don't know the David Bowie thing, it's like he, over the time of his career, he portrayed this character who landed on Earth, and then he goes back, and it kind of ties into his last album where he reascends into space. And if you look too, Bowie's music tracks with the space program. The BBC actually played the song Space Oddity during the Apollo 11 coverage. And Space Oddity is, of course, a reference to Space Odyssey. And the main character in Space Odyssey, 2001 Space Odyssey, Kubrick, is David Bowman. And I'm pretty sure David Bowie is a reference to David Bowman, because, Bowie's, of course, a stage name. But there are a number of elements here where you can see there's a tracking of the transition into the space age with this Bowie character culminating with his effigy being put into the car and sent into space. Starboy says 69 days between Ye's birth and Elvis's death. Yeah, 69 is one of those numbers Musk is obsessed with, along with 42 and 420. And these aren't just Musk's obsessions. I mean, it looks like just harmless memes, but there's always a double meaning. But the number 42 is consistently associated with the space program, which we could get into separately, but I'm saying here is that Musk takes these concepts and these symbols, and nobody takes it seriously because he's just this memester. So he can do the Hitler salute. If Ye did that, he'd be censored. All right, let's see what we have here on the table. Phones are open, by the way. Tom Cruise was at the Super Bowl. Again, I missed it. And Tom Cruise was in this movie called Oblivion, which is like this sci-fi futuristic thing. And like all science fiction today, set in the future, it presupposes that we get nuked first. That's something that we can look forward to. And Oblivion has Tom Cruise going into this a stadium that just looks melted. And you can still see the goalpost. A dog walks up to him. A couple of other details that kind of pop up. He's got a hat that has New York on it. They actually filmed it in a crater. So there's some interesting connection here between Tom Cruise. The dog reference, of course, it goes back to A Boy and His Dog, a movie about a post-apocalyptic world. And it was actually set in 2024. Sometimes the predictive programming doesn't happen perfectly on time, but it's pretty close. Also, the movie Fallout, the series Fallout, had a reference to A Boy and His Dog. They had a movie poster for it. Not coincidentally, Fallout Season 2 has been postponed because of the fires in Los Angeles that have been compared to a nuclear explosion by both Trump, the mainstream media, and Jay Leno. Starboy says number 33 made a big interception tonight. Yeah, I should probably go through the Gilded and follow through with my research for the evening. Again, I couldn't get myself to watch it. I had a feeling it was going to be a big nothing burger. Like, as much as you can kind of read between the lines, and it looks like it would be the perfect opportunity to send a big message, to shock the world, like a 9/11ing of the world. They won't do it because they have to operate within closed movie sets. They don't do psyops in full view of the public, nor do they endanger real people. And so there's no reason to think that they would set off a panic when you have so many people in the stadium. The only time you see psyops where there are large crowds of people is at the end of the event, the tail end of it. All right, let's see if I've missed anything. Perry says, this is on Twitter, my ears during the Kendrick Lamar halftime show. Has a picture of Trump's bleeding ear. Yeah, how was the halftime show? Did I miss anything? Stuart McKenzie says, the movie Chronicle looks interesting. The movie poster has the Space Needle and a falling man. Anyone seen it? Now that's interesting for a lot of reasons. The Space Needle, that's a whole other topic. It's a intentionally designed UFO. I mean, that's what it's meant to be. And the tractor beam. And I think there's a lot of connection between the significance of that and the meaning of it and the meaning of the obelisk and the symbol of resurrection. There's a lot of interesting things that go into the Space Needle, but also the number 42. Like it's 42 seconds to go up the elevator. It's 42 meters wide, the Seattle Space Needle. Washington, State 42. And it goes pretty deep, repeated themes, these numbers, but the falling man and the 42 are also closely correlated, as we've mind mapped this. Like, for example, Paris Olympics, Tom Cruise shows up, and what does he do? He rappels. Well, how far down does he rappel? 42 meters. There's a significance to it that I've discerned from usage. So 33 always seems to refer to an ascension, and 42, falling. light and darkness. And 42 is also constantly correlated with gravity, with the planet Saturn, colored black. These are all just like, you even said the Chronicle, for example. Well, Chronos, Chronos, Saturn, time is also implicit in all of this. It's the Saturn reference. Some have even suggested that the Space Needle UFO might be a Saturn thing. I don't know, but there is something to it. For example, Jeff Bezos has a $42 million clock dedicated, I would say, to Chronos, but he has it in the Sierra Diablo Mountains. Very interesting backstory to it, especially if you look into the opening ceremony. Conspiracy Alarmist said Zach Hubbard did a show with Johnny Sircoci, and they both talked for an hour about innumerable celebrity blood sacrifices as real. They live in a fictional universe. MSM Plus. They're not auto hoaxers. They're not skeptics. I don't think Johnny Sircucci is all that great of a researcher either. He says that I'm Jesuity, and he claims that I have a tattoo of Satan on my chest. And I'm like, where does he get his information from? How does he know that wasn't a false rumor? I mean, how do you even just run with something like that? It just destroys your credibility. But his main thing is the Jesuits did it. And are the Jesuits even a thing anymore? I don't know. I kind of think that, these are archaic groups. For example, Masons. Do the Masons control the world? I think that's a vast oversimplification. And I would even say that the blood oaths have been replaced by non-disclosure agreements and security clearances. Secret societies run the world, but now they're security clearance societies. I saw some article recently. Elon Musk doesn't have the security clearance to go backstage at SpaceX. He's a spectator, like all the profane masses. Elon Musk might not know space is fake. Think about how insulated he would be. I mean, the richest man in the world, like to not be in the know, there's no way. I mean, I don't know. Do we give him the benefit of the doubt? Like, is he just a big reality TV show star who's been put into something of a delusional, solipsistic world by insulation so he doesn't figure out what a massive fraud he is? Or does he know? Is he a dupe or is he evil? Valid question. Verkjan says, the halftime show is mostly dancers flailing in tracksuits. Jimbo Akimbo, halftime show is boring and unmusical. This is where it's at, says Kendrick Lamar did the same ritual, same color scheme, boring game all in all. Non-close games are always boring. Kendrick had some, Thelema, good. Yeah, so I think that what we're seeing with these events are routine and boring at this point. Pretty much predictable. Starboy Devoid says, Uncle Sam, played by Samuel L. Jackson, introduced Kendrick and then chimed in throughout the performance, telling him in a real tongue-in-cheek way what to do to entertain the American public. Now, Samuel Jackson's an interesting one. I'll have to look at this one. All of these actors bring not just their own personal gravitas, but they bring with them all of their associated roles. So when they show up on the world stage, you have to look at their catalog to see, well, what's the real meaning of it? This is how we were able to discern all the various instances of Robert De Niro representing Trump. In fact, we talked about this quite a bit after the fake Trump shooting, how much of this was actually predicted in Robert De Niro roles. But there's a new movie out I haven't seen yet I think it's called Ground Zero, and it's starring Robert De Niro as a former president, and it has to do with some cyber attack. Starboy said, Kendrick waited till the end to play the hit song that won the Grammys and gave the people what they wanted. Okay, so that was the call-out song to Drake. And the owl, which, see, I kind of think the owl and Drake's logo, OVO, which is an owl. He wears the owl shirt. I thought this was all a superb owl reference, like it's a secret reference to that thing they worship at the Bohemian Grove. Gondola Wish said, trying to decide if I should continue watching IPS 9. I don't know what that means. Oh, I see. Or take a shower. Well, look, if you have to go somewhere, go to ips.monster and you can find all the places to get archives. I'm on Spotify. Spotify is actually picking up traction. Odyssey feeds all these different platforms. So chances are, whatever podcast app you have, we're on it. Mizell says they still amaze and entertain the masses, though. Michelle K says, I think he represented Papa Legba. Okay, that's interesting. Yeah, you have to look at this as syncretism. And I think we can see the same thing with The Weeknd, where he's in red, black, and white. So the colors do have associations with various deities from various traditions. And what's interesting is how these overlap. How you can find that different religious traditions venerating gods by different names, but associated with the same planets, have the same qualities in terms of their color and their archetypes that they tend to embody. This is where you get these syncretic blended religions like Santeria, which merges Afro-Caribbean polytheism with Catholic saints. It's actually very popular, I believe, here at least. I mean, you can find the candles in the grocery store where it's Catholic saints, but they're Africanized in terms of the names of the deities they stand for. And this was just one of these instances of religions surviving undercover by concealing themselves through symbolism, analogous symbolism. But the analogous symbolism is relevant here. That's why we've been looking at these Super Bowls, because the symbolism is always pointing to the same places. Largely, I think the Gnostic Catholic Mass. And I was first alerted to this back after the wardrobe malfunction of Janet Jackson. And someone had pointed out to me that there's some heavy symbolism here pointing to a Candlemas, or Imbolc, which means in milk. And it has to do with the weaning of the sun god. And the traditional date is when that happened. And the exposure of her breast with the sun piercing is like a sun. I kind of think that's all kind of consistent with this. And thank you, Michelle K, for joining on the IPS website. I noticed you signed up today. Again, if you go to ips.monster, you get free notifications, and I upload all the video archives there. Stuart McKenzie says, Drake has an album cover with the Space Needle too. I'll have to look into that. The owl, pretty ominous. The Space Needle. I haven't listened to a lot of Drake's music. I don't really listen to these, but I notice them when they are put out there in front of the masses. And Kendrick Lamar had caught my attention after the Damar Hamlin thing, where he fake died and they resurrected him on the stage, on the field. And he had this performance where he was Christ, and it was called Heart Part 5. And he was surrounded by dancers in red who smeared blood on him. So this bloody Christ thing, this is all part of this Gnostic Catholic Mass. Thoughts on Elon's missing Doge commercials? No, I haven't caught up with that. I've been reading about Doge, and from the left, they're all acting like this is some kind of fascist takeover. Trump at the Super Bowl, nothing burger, says Gondola Wish. Well, I saw a headline. People cheered when they saw his picture. I'm not all that entertained. I know it's the PSYOP entertainment complex, but I kind of think they're a little underwhelming. But I think it's going to pick up. I just don't think it's the season yet. I think they like to start off the riots after like May Day. All right, let's continue. There's quite a few notes here. Now, this is something I didn't know. The name of the photographer who photographed Trump doing the Braveheart pose on 7/13, Ivan Vucci, took the famous shot of the reporter throwing a shoe at Bush. So we were noting these AP photographers who are there for questionable events. So the same guy who photographs the Secret Service whispering into George Bush's ear photographs the bullet whizzing by Trump's ear. And that photograph is a miracle, by the way. Assuming it's all real, that was a miraculous shot. and he happened to have the right camera, the right shutter speed. I mean, just incredible coincidence. But that photographer, of course, had that other famous shot, and now the guy who shot this one here, the Braveheart pose, also did the shoe at Bush. And then you have Richard Drew, who photographed the 9/11 falling man 33 years prior, photographed RFK falling to his death. So we talk about the what we call the meta-scripters, as in the directors, but I think it's also noteworthy to just pay attention to these various photographers. It tells you something. Who has the security clearance in this security clearance society? Who is high up enough on the capstone to be involved in these high-level psyops? Who's in the know? And there are some people you can just, like, is it a question that Musk is in the know about fake space? I mean, I brought up that maybe he's kind of LARPing, like he doesn't know. Maybe he's a real dupe, but I don't know. I think there's a point where you can say they have no plausible deniability. Yeah, if you want to call back, the ringer wasn't on. I just turned it back on. There was something about my browser. It says your browser prevented the call from ringing. Change your browser settings. I believe it's fixed. So if you want to call back, phones are open. Gondola Wish says, I see there's online conjecture that the Super Bowl ritual was minimized, akin to how people are saying chemtrails are gone. Taylor Swift got booed on the big screen. Yeah, there are people who are saying that Doge has defunded chemtrails, which is silly. I mean, contrails exist. It depends on the weather. Contrails exist. That's a fact. Chemtrails are akin to a superstition at best, a hyperstition. They don't exist. It's kind of funny how people just think there's a debate. Oh, is it a contrail? Is it a chemtrail? No, chemtrails don't exist. It's actually a bad argument at this point. It's an argument. It's an appeal to ignorance. It's an argument from just sheer incredulity. Infinite Plane Radio.
It's Plain Decoded.
Oh, what's up, Plain Decoded? Did you happen to watch the Super Bowl mystery Babylon fertility rites? I mean, the game.
Yeah, I did. Yes, I did. And then I just was watching back because I knew you were going to go live, and I was trying to catch what I could from watching it back. And I didn't fully watch it through, but so I just took some notes, and this is what I noticed. Okay, so there's themes of Christ, reincarnation, the stars, and then the stars and stripes, and then it was in the dark. So it was like, and there was like he was mentioning stars in his raps, and Christ, and reincarnation, and the moon, and it is almost a full moon tonight too. And he mentions it's a full moon in one of his songs. And then you got I don't know if you noticed this, but there's guys on the pole. They're like up on the pole. They're like hanging on the pole. And I heard someone else say this, but in Philadelphia, they won their last Super Bowl, and a kid was on the pole and he fell and died.
Okay,
so,
okay.
Like, that rings back to that.
Wow.
Yeah, but it also makes me think of Christ as well, like being on the tree, right? Or like the hangman. And then, and for some reason, he was Sam Jackson is Uncle Sam. That was confusing. And Kendrick Lamar was deducted one life for some reason. He says, you've been deducted one life. Kobe was mentioned in the raps after all these plane crashes and after the anniversary of his. So then he ends up rapping in a cross, right? More themes of Christ and reincarnation. And he ends up on the 33-yard line. If you Google Kendrick Lamar's Apple Music Super Bowl halftime show and then go to 651, he stands on the 33rd-yard line in the cross.
Okay, that's interesting. There's no way that's a coincidence because, as we've been saying for a couple of years, the only reason I've been following this character is his association with promulgating this Black Christ archetype, and it correlates with BLM and this creation of this new, I guess, the representative of the oppressed class, of being oppressed, of course, by the West. And it's this dynamic they've set up. But I'm not surprised at all. And the 33 thing just further cements it.
Yeah. And then he ends up rapping in a circle, which is like classic spell casting. And then he raps in a triangle, which is the classic, everyone knows about the triangle. And then like another theme, like overall theme to it was very militaristic. Like I felt like it was very militaristic. And then Trump's in the house. And then just before he's talking about annexing Canada, like he's doing an interview and he's talking about annexing Canada, and like that's not going to go well for if that's a legit. Like I thought that was a joke, but I'm a Canadian, and like if that ever happened, like that would not be good.
Now, somebody
I
remarked
think they
that
can annex.
it was all black performers at the halftime show. I'll have to check into that, but that may be relevant as well because one of the things that has been correlated here at the BLM thing is this dynamic between 1619 and 1776. And this all ties into this broader narrative that Lamar's propaganda feeds into. Very interesting stuff you brought up here. I'll have to parse through it and I'll watch that video. And the moon reference. It's like Rihanna, for example. When she comes down, she was a pregnant belly. She was in red, and she came down dark in the background, looked like stars, like a moon goddess. And this whole concept of the Great Rite means that the priest and the priestess are avatars of the lunar goddess or the solar deity.
Yeah, they brought back that character too. I remember that you talked about that. There wasn't pregnant, but there was the same woman in red rapping with him.
Okay.
But she wasn't pregnant.
Okay, see that's
same exact thing though.
I more or less predicted this. I said you had Rihanna in red, the dancers in white. Then you had Alicia Keys in red and Usher in white, representing the Christ, Black Christ. You had the Phoenix, which is a Christ symbol. And I said when Kendrick Lamar was coming on, I'm like, okay, you're going to have this Christ with the Magdalene. And that's what the red represents, the Scarlet Woman.
Yeah. Yeah, that exact person was there. Because when I was like, oh, yeah, I remember that. Was that last year? And I couldn't remember exactly. But it's been red and white the past few years, right? Like this year, the year before, and then when what's his face he was wearing all red too and white. Well, he had his face covered.
When they first announced that he was going to be on, that Kendrick Lamar was going to be on, the photo of him was he was sitting down in front of an American flag, but the way the flag was so big and it was framed, it was just red and white. And then he had the football between his feet, which some said might be a reference to an egg, which would kind of correspond with everything here.
Yeah. So yeah, that's just like what I noted. I'm just like skimming through it here I was trying to add something to the show. But if you can see the whole thing if you just type in Kendrick Lamar's Apple Music Super Bowl halftime show. Yeah, and then 6:51. If you just go to that, you can see he's standing right on the 33rd yard line in the X.
Okay, well, I appreciate you calling in, and I'm going to go through this with a fine-tooth comb. I'll be watching it right after the live stream, and thank you for supplying all that. And I think you caught some of the major stuff, and I'm going to have to look into the thing with the pole and the person who died because that's got to be connected.
Yeah, well, it seems a little bit more subtle this time around, but I think it's a lot of it is in his lyrics as well because he skips around a lot. He is not like consistent in the choruses and then the verses. You think he's at one part, but he skips to the next verse.
One of his music videos, and I don't remember the exact name of it, but his face morphs. So it's his face, and then it morphs into Will Smith, and then he was big news because of the big slap, and then it morphs into Ye, and then it morphs into OJ. So I was like, okay, there's something here with this character. I had to go back and look at these things. But Ye's been in the news recently because, his recent meltdown, and then he was an inspiration for a school shooter. And I believe someone said here, he just deactivated his Twitter. Okay, well, he took it as far as he could.
All right, well, I'll let you go, though, because this is long distance for me, but that's what I just wanted to add.
Okay, thank you for the call. I appreciate you taking the time. Okay, that was a 6-minute and 51-second call, and he said 6:51 on the halftime show. And I'll Google it. It's just that my browser here is a little slow, and if I pull up a video, it'll probably delay us, but I'll be checking it out. Vertron says, another interesting symbol is how all the dancers came out of a car, like how many clowns come out of a car. Okay. Yeah, I'll go through it because I made some minor predictions about it. I mean, kind of general, but not really. I'm just basing it off of a pattern. And my contention here is that this is a pagan ceremony. that this is a tradition. It's a rite. It's a ritual with an esoteric meaning, and that the crowd and the viewers are actually feeding their soul energy, their life force, your loosh, whatever term you want to use. Your attention is the real currency. They don't want your money. They want your attention. They don't care if you're broke and poor. They prefer you to be poor as long as they have your attention. And I think that there's a harvesting that happens here. Where does it go? Well, I've been doing some research on this matter because I am interested in answers, not just speculation. And one of the things I've come across in my research recently has been talismanic magic and idol magic. And these are very similar. The concept is that an object, a clay object, a statue, can be a repository for a form of sentience, or more like similar to AI. It's sort of an interesting analogy, the idea that your consciousness, your thoughts are not only a thing, but they affect matter, that they can actually reside in some way. And this is, of course, magical theory, the idea that your soul energy is expelled and it goes somewhere. Energy never dissipates, it just changes form. And that properly directed, it can amplify the will of whoever created that particular talisman and whatever it's programmed to do. Now, I'm not saying I believe it. I'm just researching this stuff. And I'm just kind of curious, well, what are these occultists behind the scenes doing with all this soul, life force, attention? What's happening with it? And if you look into the theory behind magical practices, and the caller alluded to the circle, the casting of the circle. The stadium is like a big circle. And whatever happens within this circle that's opened during the performance of the ceremony is trapped within it. All the energy is basically, again, it's harvested. So what's it being used for? I don't know. Esteban says, or mana, whatever you want to call it. He says you can see the vitality globules if you face away from the sun on a sunny day. White floaty things. That's one form of vitality. Try it, you will see. You know, I've been seeing these videos of people using, I think they're using lasers or something, and they're claiming that they're seeing numbers in matrix code. Stuart McKenzie says energy flows where attention goes. Sure. I mean, and look, maybe there's nothing to it. Maybe it's all just a facade. Perhaps it doesn't mean anything. But I tend not to think so. And what would be the point of all these complex orchestrations that fit all the definitions of magical ceremony, if not for that purpose? And we've seen too much to be dismissive of it, but I think it's important to get an answer. Like, what exactly is the point? And I happen to think that we're arriving at some answers here. But I want to do a little more research into it. But I don't believe, again, as I often say, I don't believe that belief creates reality in this sense, because if it were true, moon landings would be real. The news would be real because people believe it. So no, belief does not affect reality in that sense. But belief is a lens through which your consciousness and your intention is focused and diluted or misdirected. Okay, let's move on here. I'm going through my notes. If you follow me, it's on minds.com. Infinite Plane Society. I try to keep up with everything that's happening in the Discord server. Elon Musk tweeted this thing. He said, I better maximize my security. Let me play this clip. So Musk is insinuating here that by more or less auditing the Pentagon or in any way cutting their funding, he's putting his life in jeopardy. And there's a short clip here from a few years ago where someone is talking about the unaccountability of the Pentagon when it comes to the money. And Musk has suggested here, based on this, I should maximize my security. I'll play a short clip. Again, this is from a few years ago. And just raises the question, is he a LARP? Is this a live action role play? Or does he really believe And do people believe this? Do they believe that Musk is rogue? From the podcast on the left that I'm hearing, they seem to think that he is now the fourth branch of government, that Musk has essentially taken over. And it's kind of interesting to think about, like, that people believe that this is some rich guy who has seized power. And it all just seems designed to get the public to agree that we need to all adhere to censorship of ideas, mind viruses, which is what one of the main things that he's known for, but also we need to curtail the existence of billionaires who are now plotting to become trillionaires. So here it is. This is from Wall Street Apes. He's talking about the Pentagon and its billions and the unaccountability and the incontestability of it. And again, this is a few years old.
Billions of dollars that they hide, we don't ask for any accounting of. They never pass an audit in the history of audits. I've often said the only way we're really going to get to the bottom of this is somebody's going to walk out of one of these labs with this information and puts it out on the internet before they commit suicide by shooting themselves in the back of the head 5 times.
Okay, ominous there. And I said, just don't reveal that space travel is fake and you'll be okay. That's what reveals this as ludicrous. If he was a threat to the system at all, then why is he participating in space fakery? Or does he not know it's fake? And that's a very difficult proposition to stand by, that he doesn't know. I've heard some contortions. I mean, QAnoners are all contortionists mentally, where they try to say, well, he doesn't know it's fake, or he knows it's fake and he's faking it to outfake NASA to force them to expose it as fake. They really do jump through hoops. And then they say, oh, but my Space Force, the secret space program. Oh, give me a break. The secret space program is, well, it's not really a secret space program the way that the conspiracy theorists think, like hidden technology. No, the secret is special effects. The secret is it's all just a movie. All right, moving on. I'm going to go through my Twitter feed. I tend to mark things that are worth looking at. If you want to follow me, it's IPS Think Tank. And by the way, just a reminder, the IPS Insider has sold out, but that's because I've had to reserve a number of copies for those who pre-ordered it back in September. So if you check your inbox, if you've placed an order for it, you'll get your tracking number. And I shipped out most of them yesterday, and the rest will go out tomorrow. And then once all those have gone out, any leftovers I'll put up for sale. And I'll be releasing issue 2 in about a week. And the second issue is still open to submission, so if you want to submit anything for the IPS Insider tabloid. And one minor thing, and I included a note with each of these packages, is that I used the template they supplied, and there was a mild error on their part in the template, which they have to fix, and it's simply that the margin's a little too thick. So it's not a big deal. There's a white border around the main picture, but the next issue will go all the way to the edge, or my money back. 777 says, Loosh repurposing machine. Right. Well, this Super Bowl thing is an annual thing, and I think they call them the Sabbats. So you have the main ceremonies on the pagan calendar, the equinoxes, the solstices, and the in-betweens, which gives you these 8 major holidays. And the Super Bowl just happens to be one of these major Sabbats. Another major one is May 1st, where on May 1st, you're often going to see protest movements, people marching around the Washington Monument like it's a big maypole. They think they're there for some political purpose, like fighting against gun ownership or something. But no, you're all just there as matrix batteries, powering somebody else's program. Dr. Simon Godek says, good morning to everyone except the hospital staff who found time for twerking and dance rehearsals during what was supposed to be a deadly pandemic. You know how helpful this was to us? And the case we've been making for widespread fakery, when one version of events that you got through the news was a horror show. Like, we're in the end of times. We're living in The Walking Dead. And then you go online and you find these videos of what's really going on at the hospitals. and it doesn't make any sense. And the dancing nurses was almost like a mockery. And for many people, they were rightfully, shocked and offended by it. Like, what is this? They're wasting PPE. We're being told that they're understaffed, they're overworked, but it looks like they're all clowning around. And this wasn't just one hospital. This was every hospital. And the question is, who are these people? Were these nurses that were, I don't know, given access to the pharmacy and just told to hang out, have fun, do these internet, video trends? No. Or were these actual actors? Like, I have a hard time believing that real nurses and doctors would compromise themselves like this. We have so many examples. There were nurses pole dancing on IV poles, for example. I saw one where they had a whole band set up and they were banging on bedpans like drums. And this was during the height of the pandemic, mind you. We'll have to go back and look at all the dancing nurses. And someone did find some kind of recruitment forms, some kind of something where people were getting paid to staff. I don't know. I'll have to go back and look, but it looks like we might have found a source for it. But I happen to think they're just dancing actors. All right, let's see here. Gondola Wish says, I told a woman about the dancing nurses once, and she scolded me and told me they were under so much stress and pressure from the pandemic they had to release it in that form. I heard that. Everybody said that. I mean, they had videos or pictures of nurses with bruises on their faces because they had to wear PPE all day. And I'm like, that's fake. You don't get bruised from wearing a mask. But the dancing thing, people just excused it. And I think back to the stressful jobs I've had, like telemarketing, like boiler room, cubicles, quotas, and you got these bad lists and you're just going through these numbers and nobody's answering the phone hour after hour. People are hanging up on you. And at no point have I ever thought to myself, let me go out back for a few minutes here. And a few of you guys want to join me. Let's just do some choreographed dancing back here to relieve some of the stress from work. Like, I've never seen workers getting so stressed that they start twerking in unison on the roof of a hospital or the roof of whatever. I mean, it doesn't make sense. I never bought that excuse. But the people who buy this stuff are believers, and they don't like it when you criticize the church of media. And they are true. And there's a qualitative distinction to be made between believers in media and media skeptics. Like, we're not the same. Not that they can't reframe and deprogram, but fundamentally, we're not the same in how we assess information. The mainstream news consumers are passive consumers, whereas we are active. All right, let's see. Tomanoid says, my bro was a janitor orderly during the pandemic. They definitely were forced to wear the... I use the word force lightly. And I was NBC, my first MOS, and there were times where we would wear masks, like big heavy masks with the filters on them for hours and hours at a time. White Sands, New Mexico, 90 degrees. And yeah, you would have a little bit of a mark for a couple of hours, but it wasn't like what we saw. They showed us images that looked like they'd been beaten, like nurses with black eyes and bloody noses from wearing masks. No, come on. The whole thing was an exaggeration. All right, let's move on. I'm done with 2020, but I'm not done with the dancing nurses. Like, we need to get to the bottom of that. Like, I'm more concerned with the dancing nurses and what that represents and where they came from than anything the anti-vaxxers were worried about. I haven't read this book, but I want to. There's a new book called The King of Rock and Roll. Occult Elvis. Was Presley a telepathic demigod who could heal the sick and change the weather? According to a new book, Elvis claimed to be a faith healer from Jupiter's ninth moon, who as a boy was given a vision of himself in a white jumpsuit by aliens. We talk to its author. I'll have to read this. Now, I watched the movie Elvis in the theaters, and right before, they played a trailer for Black Adam, starring The Rock. and he's got a lightning bolt on his chest, and he comes down to save the world. And I think this ties in to The Man Who Fell to Earth and Elvis and the lightning bolt on Bowie's face, for example. But right after that trailer for Black Adam, it opens up the Elvis movie. And he's a kid, who wears a big lightning bolt around his neck. And he goes into some tent, and it's this gospel religious music, and then he gets possessed, and he starts singing and performing. And then it fast forwards to where he's older, and he's working for an electric company, and it has the big lightning bolt on it. But anyway, I watched the movie, and there's a subtext where he does seem to be this savior from space. The idea of the man who fell to earth, savior, it's kind of tied into Elvis's role. Do I really believe he was a faith healer from the ninth moon of Jupiter? I don't know. Kind of. JL talks about this all the time. There's a lot of content here with Elvis and why and he's not an old meme that just keeps getting rehashed. I mean, he's constantly re-injected into our psyche, our collective psyche. It's like the last movie Francis Ford Coppola did, Megalopolis. They had Elvis performing at Saturnalia, which is highly significant, Saturnalia. And he's wrapped in an American flag singing America the Beautiful, which was Donald Trump's first inauguration song, first term's inauguration song, America the Beautiful. So I'm like, wait, Elvis, Trump reference, the flag. And then Trump goes back to D.C., and he and Melania are greeted by an Elvis impersonator. Like, what the hell was that? Oh, the book's name is The Occult Elvis, The Mystical and Magical Life of the King. Okay. Now, I've heard he was into a lot of occult stuff, but I didn't know how deep. I did have a biography on him, and I stopped reading it because I think it might have been made up. But according to that one, he was some kind of a voyeur and would spy on his guests through a hole in the wall. I mean, peeping Tom stuff. Really creepy. I don't believe it. And I don't want to forward bad rumors, but that does seem to be a part of his story. A lot of weird stuff in the background. Okay, let's see here. Super Bowl 2025, what's going to happen? I didn't even bother with these, but I caught up with a lot of this stuff. I just flagged it. I marked it. A lot of prophecies that didn't come true.
This is pretty interesting. I asked Grok.
And one more thing. 2025, if you're on TikTok, you need to stop the finger wagging. Everybody on TikTok, I don't know why. They vibrate and they move around weird. They block what they're telling you to look at, like they're standing in front of the TV. And they're wagging their fingers around. They all do the waggy finger. So here's another finger wagger, a finger wagging TikToker with her prophecy about the Super Bowl. And I just want to see how far off it was. So it's my first time actually listening to it. We'll see how much we can take. What is going to happen?
Super Bowl, and what was the score? And apparently Kansas City Chiefs is going to win with a score of 35-38. But they also believe that a big case of revelation of the method is about to occur. So apparently the Super Bowl will take place.
Okay. That's about all I can go with right now. But basically what she's saying is revelation of the method. The movie Black Sunday has a blimp crashing into the Super Bowl, and it predicted the score. So many people with this TikTok creepy music in the background. Yeah, thank you. Gondola Wish. TikTok music is death. But what makes them do it? What makes people want to get in front of some thrice regurgitated internet rumor and present it as their own? Out of context. It's incoherent at best. And this has been my main criticism of Gematria people, where it's all about clickbait and creating some kind of appearance that you're calling something big. It's no different than doomsday prophecy, and I've thought about how this works. Like, if I wanted to be a doomsday preacher, I would memorize Revelation, and I would therefore have a large body of content to draw from to match with the current news. And you can kind of bend it, and if you have true believers, they're very tolerant to you bending the meaning of things. There's so many, like the guy who they claim he said he had a dream that a bullet went by Trump's head and it busted his eardrum. So he's been given credit with being a prophet. Well, that's been debunked. That's been totally debunked. I think his name was Biggs. He said that there was a big mountain behind Trump. There's no mountains in Butler. So maybe he got the ear thing right, but the date wasn't right. And he deleted all of his videos that were wrong to make it look like he was accurate. Common trick. It's called Texas sharpshooter fallacy, which means someone's drawing from a big pool and only circling the correct answers. And so the analogy, it comes from this idea of like a sharpshooter or someone who claims to be a sharpshooter just fires a bunch of rounds into the side of a barn. And then he draws the target after the fact, encircling the closest grouping, giving himself bullseyes, but ignoring all the wrong answers, the missed shots. And I see this used quite often. Well, the same guy has been reported to have a prophecy about some... Oh, yeah, that's right. He said it was going to be an explosion. Let me go ahead and pull this up. Okay, so prophet, Super Bowl, explosion. And I think his name was Biggs. Yeah, the prophet that predicted Trump's assassination attempt 3 months ago resurfaces. And I think he just said that, yeah, there was going to be an explosion. Anyway, there wasn't an explosion. But people have short memories. I mean, I think you should get fired. If you're a prophet and you get it wrong, no one should listen to you again. But what actually works, and this is very paradoxical, is when they get it wrong, the people who believe in it become more certain that it's going to be right the next year, and the next year, and the next year. And the longer it takes to come true, the more likely the next time is going to be the time it comes true. It's the gambler fallacy. Like, I'm on a slot machine. I keep losing, but the next one's more likely to win. If I keep losing, eventually it's going to win. And this is based on this like really human notion that we have that it's all going to balance out. There's a balance in here. Well, in a way, probability is clumpy. That's what Carl Sagan said. That, yeah, it may in all probability balance out in the end. But large sequences of losses or large sequences of wins are not predictive of what's going to happen next. The odds don't change. Infinite Plane Radio.
Hey, bro.
Hey, what's up? Is this Infinite Jack?
You got it.
What's going on? How'd you enjoy the circus today? Did you watch it?
I was over at a friend's house over in Newport, and I was trying to watch this Elon commercial for Doge, but it never happened. Did you hear it? Did you see it? Anyone?
Everyone's saying it didn't happen, that it just mysteriously didn't show up.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering. Has anyone seen it? I just got back home and I was just asking all my threads online, has anyone seen the Doge commercial? What happened? And there's no evidence of it, but there was this whole thing that Elon spent all this money to buy a Doge commercial and and I never saw shit. I watched the whole damn game for that.
No, I'm sure we'll hear about it now, but no, you're right. Nobody has seen it. This has been the talk, the missing Doge commercial. What was supposed to be in it?
So
Now,
I'm not crazy.
Now, was this a commercial for the Department of Government Efficiency, or was it for the Doge coin?
Yeah. No, efficiency. Yeah.
Okay, I see. Well, look, if he cared about government efficiency,
That's what I was just.
if he cared about it,
Yeah.
he would delete NASA. He would delete the space program, because that is all a big waste of money. It's a major
Right.
black hole. Now, Drinkwater says maybe the publicity of not showing the ad is bigger than showing the ad. Now that's a great point because I would
What
not
the?
I would not have heard about this ad if it had played. But since nobody played the ad, now I'm hearing about it. Now I care about it. Now I want to see it.
I bought all these. I bought all these crypto channels and just talk about because everyone's excited about whatever crypto shit. But I was just curious. Like everyone's saying, "Oh, Elon's gonna drop some Doge bombs on not Dogecoin, fuck that, but Department of Government Efficiency advertisements," and it never showed. And I look like a jackass, like I was a Q-tard or some shit.
Oh, I see. I see. Okay, okay. Makes sense. I can see why you would be.
You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
You know what I'm saying? Like I feel like I got egg on my face.
Well, it would have made, yeah, I see that because it would have made a big impact and it would have lent credibility to the idea, and it didn't show up. But look, I have no faith in Musk. I have no faith in government. I think government is just a
Right.
subset of mind control. I've lost all hope, which is, I think, I don't know. It makes sense. Hopium is a dead
It's
end.
crazy. But he was gonna drop all these bombs and this and that. I'm not a Q-tart, obviously, but it's just like this whole thing with, oh, it's gonna be a Doge. Like he's gonna like release all these expenditures that the government's spending and the media won't talk about. He bought all this money and he never did anything. There was no ad. I watched the whole damn freaking game just to watch this commercial, and he never posted it.
I have my ear on Q Street, and the Q people were saying that the Kendrick Lamar song was going to expose all the child abusers in the music industry, and that Twitter was going to be used to platform the truth, and that the Great Awakening was going to happen after the halftime show. And they're all a buzz about this watching the game. And I'm like, that's Hopium speaking. They're pulling that lever. This time the prophecy is going to come true. And no, it didn't come true. Major nothing burger. Breadcrumbs from nothing burgers. And they're not going to stop hoping.
Oh yeah, they got to move the goalpost, right?
Drinkwater says Elon runs the American government. It's mind boggling. Look, I know why people have this impression, but you have to remember that there are no governments, plural. There really isn't. You can't convince me of this because of the ubiquity of fakery and the agreement between all media globally. I think the only logical conclusion is that there's only one government, but they disguise it like multiple governments so we don't fight about it. But basically, government is a subset of global mind control, and it's monolithic. It's like a religion. It's a monotheistic religion, but it's all secular, and it's already boss. The new world order is your boss. Like there's no reason to think that there's any savior like Musk or otherwise that's going to make any bit of a difference, in my opinion.
Yeah, yeah, totally. And I just wanted to see it just for kicks and giggles. I just was curious to see if he actually ran an ad, but there was no ad. So I don't even know where that meme came from or if it was just internet rumor, but I look like a jackass. No pun intended.
Now, if that was a rumor, that's pretty cool. I should have started a rumor that IPS is going to run an ad at the halftime show. Everybody talks about it, doesn't happen. But as a marketing ploy, yes, yes, setting the expectation. I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, it was all right. Just want to verify. No one else seen it. No one's, there's no proof of it. I had to watch 3 hours of that stupid ass game to watch a commercial, which never even showed up.
Well, I'm glad I didn't watch it. I felt like I was going to be disappointed, but I'm going to go back and watch the halftime ritual for the purposes of just decoding it. But yeah, I agree with your disappointment. I can sense it. There's a lot of disappointment. Major nothing burgers. The Q Street people are going to be hitting their Q pipes, hoping for next year. Not that you're one of them.
Yeah, well, they're a year off. We always got to move the goalposts with the Q-tards, right?
Well, 2 weeks. It'll happen in 2 weeks. JFK Jr. is going to come back in 2 weeks.
Yeah,
Unbelievable.
yeah.
Well,
JFK Jr. and then Trump is Elvis, right? something like that. They're
Yeah.
all about it.
Yeah, it never goes away. They've just they've masqueraded it a bit. But whenever there's a big event, the Q shows up. The Q people kind of they get agitated close to these big events, and I do follow them. Most of the big Q people block me because they know I'm there to expose the grift. It's run out of the White House, and this hope they've placed in Musk is misdirected. If anything, Musk is one of the more obvious fake characters. But anyway, people are so surface level. The nose is to the screen.
What I love to do with any Q-tard is, or any tard, is basically say Elon has a car still flying in space, and I get crickets whenever I comment that on Space Boys fan channels. Like it's like, don't talk about the car in space, right?
Yeah, is there a car in space? This is a question where you're supposed to believe that science has put a car up in space, that this is a scientific claim to say, I saw it on TV, SpaceX put a car in space. But my contention is that requires a leap of faith. Do you have faith that what you saw on TV wasn't a PR stunt? And based on the quality of it, I think it's obviously fake. But yeah, if you believe there's a car in space, the only thing you can say is you believe it, that you have faith it's true. But you can't assert it to be a scientifically defensible position. I don't think that there's anything more than faith holding that thing up there.
Well, is something that the media's trying to bury? I mean, are they still thinking the car's in space? I mean, it's funny because it's like that was a meme from a long time ago, and now are we still supposed to believe?
Oh yeah, everything accumulates. Nothing ever gets deleted. That's what's so crazy about their news bending, is that all of their fake news gets carved into stone. No matter how many of us see through it, the history books will report it as a fact, and the news will always support it. So the public live in a fictional universe, and I don't. And if they believe that there's a car in space, it's a contemporary myth, and it validates their priesthood. It validates nasatology. I'm not a nasatologist.
But where's the follow-up to the car in space? You know, like there's no updates.
Yeah, it's kind of a nothing burger. I'm pretty sure once in a while they'll tell us how to spot it. They'll say somebody saw it with their telescope, but no, it was all ceremony. It was all ritual. I mean, it was so encoded with stuff from Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy to the David Bowie Starman stuff, Starman, Mr. Satan.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Chris
Anyway,
Lee. Okay, yeah. Somebody here in the chat says someone laughed at him. Chris Aries says, a guy at work laughed at me when I said it was fake. That's just irony. I mean, it's you can't do anything with it. They have a different frame of reference. They're believers. They're in the box. And I don't try to contradict the people in the box. I speak to them from where they're at. You know, it's
right.
It's like you're talking to kids. You don't want to tell them Santa's fake. You know, they'll figure it out in their own.
I told my daughter, I told her since she was 2 years old, Santa's fake.
Okay, well, you gave her a heads up. That's probably a wise move, but
no, and then she's told all her friends who are like 3 to 5 years old that Santa's fake, and then her parents come up to me and go, you can't, I'm not ready to reveal that information to my daughter or my kid or whatever, my son or daughter. And I go, well, I already told my daughter it's fake. And so now I have to tell my daughter, I go, some kids think Santa's real because their parents tell them that, but we all know it's just like the Grinch or a unicorn or whatever. It's just pretend, and it's just pretend fun thing that people do around Christmas time, and that's the way it is. And she gets the concept, but when she reveals that concept to people or other kids, the parents come crazy going after me that I revealed it too early. I just think it's ridiculous.
well, I think the thing is when people believe something rather than know it from facts, from like I'm talking about anything. When someone believes in any major claim, if they came to believe in it in a state of high emotion, like it's a school shooting, so they're crying when they see it, they're sending money to GoFundMe. That type of belief that's attached to emotion is different from something they arrive at through impartial examination of facts. And when you confront a belief that's tied to emotions, it's like those emotions come back out with it. It's like you say, oh, this event was fake, and you're re-traumatizing them, and they remember all the emotions. And it kind of reminds me of the theory behind Scientology auditing, where you have someone go back through their memories and you trigger all these events in order to remove the charge. And they consider this to be a form of deprogramming. And I think there might be some validity to this, because I think when you're confronting entrenched beliefs, I do think there are emotions attached. And that's why it's so volatile to even get into conversations with people about things that they accept to be true. You know, people don't want to be called out as liars. And people are liars, especially to themselves.
Or their kids. And the whole Santa thing, I mean, I just say to my daughter, she's 6 now, but I say, hey, Santa's pretend, just like Easter Bunny and the Leprechaun and Tooth Fairy and dinosaurs. I mean, I just kind of put them under the same net. And dude, when I tell her this, the light goes off in her head, and she understands that concept. But other parents, they want to compartmentalize each individual lie and decide when they're going to release that truth to the kid. You know, it's so weird.
No, I'm not on the fence necessarily, but I'm questioning the premise that dinosaurs were totally fake. I think there's some bad claims in that area, but I don't know what they're covering up. Giants or dragons? What do you think?
Good point. Good question. Giants, dragons aren't what they describe as dinosaurs. I guess that's my answer.
Yeah. No, I'm with you on this, though. I don't think that people need to be shielded from reality, because the more you shield them, the more it's going to hurt when they're confronting it directly. I mean, look how many Gloobers we've just seen break down and cry. Look how many people who believe the news get triggered. Even conspiracy theorists get triggered when you challenge their orthodoxies. But that's what we're here to do. You know, I have no problem.
I'd be more likely to describe to my, or to tell my child, like, dragons and giants were more real than dinos, I guess. I mean, if that makes sense.
I think so. I think there's a strong case to be made. I think there's some fascinating supports for this notion of giants and dragons. I mean, these ubiquitous things.
I'm not presenting evidence to her, but I'm just saying to her, hey, the dino narrative is maybe, you know, I don't. Her mind isn't at the point where she can understand.
I don't know if you could bring that one up, because you're talking about fake science. That's very adult level concepts, because they're going to go through school. Like, I would never tell, if I had children, I wouldn't say, hey, climate change is fake.
I'm homeschooling her.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Because if you say to the kids, hey, this is fake, they're going to get F's in school. They're going to be laughed at. They're going to be ostracized. Like, you're setting them up for failure. Like, unfortunately, nonconformity is a bad path to take. I think it's kind of rough. I wouldn't force it on someone.
No, but from a homeschool perspective, I mean, you know, question everything type of, you know, but I don't know. Like, the other day, the word government came up in a conversation, and my daughter goes, Dad, what is government? You never taught me about this yet. And I go, oh, we'll get there.
Okay.
I go, well, government, they clean the streets and they take out the trash and they make sure that there's someone to keep the lights on the lampposts. I don't know, describe it with her. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. Well, tricky stuff. I wouldn't know how to handle it. You know, I think this is a very psychedelic age, and sanity, I think, is devalued. I think we should all be more objective about things, and it's impossible in today's world. So, yeah, I don't know how people do it, how you inoculate people against self-defeating misdirection, mind control. You know, it's easier to be a Truman in the Truman Show if you don't know everything's fake.
Yeah, but right. And I don't want to.
Hey, Flozik says dinos covering up. Yeah, look, I was just kind of being facetious about giants and dragons. because there's this dynamic that I realized is contrived. Candace Owens has been criticized for saying dinosaurs don't exist, and her explanation isn't an evaluation of the data, like contradicting their science
Right.
or confronting it. Rather, her whole take is that, oh no, the scientists are all Satanists and they're trying to hide Christ. So she's attached it to what she calls a Christ conspiracy, that science is there to hide Christ.
Right.
And I'm like, no, non-scientific propositions passed off into the public as real science can only be contradicted or refuted by real science, not by mysticism or religious belief. So I'm certainly not with it. And I think I think the fake dino narrative could be something of a trap. Like, I need to stand on firmer ground before I can just outright say this thing is fake. But I do have, of course, reasons to not trust them in general.
Right. We have, for giants, we do have pictures of, we do have evidence of large doors, right? So there's that. Dragons, I'm not versed on it, but the dinos, and we have the bone wars, right, from the late 1800s to the early 1900s, and that whole.
Well, what can be said about dinos is that any dino that you've seen is a plaster model. It's all plaster. Yes.
Mark Sargent is a dino boy. He's a dino believer. So just go ahead.
That's right. That's right. You confronted Mark Sargent. I saw your comments. You said something about this, and he said, you have to believe in something. I'm like, why? So my issue with the dino narrative is this. They teach it to children. First thing that happens, you get to kindergarten, they teach you about the dinos being killed by the big rock, mass extinction. And so it's like, this is I think this is like a point where it's almost like a creation narrative, and I think it's more story and myth, and I don't know. It's one of these areas where I think the public
why wouldn't they say dragons? You know what I mean? Like, why they gotta make it dinos and like Brontosaurus Rex and the Raptors or whatever the fuck,
Well, hey,
so strange.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I'm not quite sure. The giant thing, I think it's intriguing. I think there's a lot of stories, but
I don't know. I don't even know much about that. I mean, I don't. It's intriguing, but yeah, dude. No Elon advertisement for the Super Bowl. That was the huge meme for the past 36 hours that Elon bought $5 million to run Doge ads on the Super Bowl. It never fucking happened, bro.
Okay, well, we're probably going to hear about the ad that doesn't exist more than any of the ads that were played. So we'll be hearing about this again. So thanks for the call and appreciate the information. Call back anytime.
Hey, hold on. Check
Sure.
your DMs, yeah? What did he say?
Check my DMs. Okay, I will. I will.
I can hit you on the now I'm in the Gilded, since we killed the Discord got nuked, but dude, if you need anything, bro.
Okay, we do have a secondary Discord that is exclusive to South Pole. And I had a sign from the universe. I thought, we got to do South Pole again. I have some scripts I'm working on. And I was just going through storage, and on the random, I found this shirt today that I haven't worn in a few years. It says South Pole. So I have a server for South Pole. And so you can actually reach me there as well. Link's easy to find.
No, I'll hit you on Gilded, but fuck it. I don't even know. I mean, South Pole, that's cool. I'll find it. But dude, the whole thing was I just want to, if there's anything I can do, but also I want to drop some 9/11 bombs, dude. As far as crisis actors in 9/11, like, can we release that?
Yeah, I think we should. I think it needs to be contextualized, because the thing is, everybody knows it's fake, but they have their own interpretation of what fake means.
But if we expose the actual random people walking around the streets that are just straight up like in makeup and costume, I mean, it's epic.
It only convinces it's only preaching to the choir. I mean, the people who believe in it based on bad evidence, and you can't fix that. That's what I mean. The main issue is they won't accept it if it's not coming from the TV. And I'm not trying to wake people up if they're in Normieville, if they're that programmed. I'm only interested in reaching out to people who've already figured out a certain level of things. Like truthers are accessible. Mainstream normies.
Right. Going back 20 years, dude. Do you know how I woke up, right? Was Alex Jones, InfoWars, 9/11's an inside job, whatever it was called. What was it? Loose change, whatever that even meant. Loose change? I still don't even get the meme. But do you? Do you know what that even means?
No, I don't know what that means now that I think about it, but I do recall.
I've always wondered, dude. Like someone solved the riddle, dude. Loose change? What the fuck does that even mean, dude? But that I was all about loose change, bro, back in the day. And the revelations that I could present with crisis actors at 9/11, it's not even Harley Boy, Harley Man. It's nothing. It's way better than that. And that may be a chance for people to actually wake up, right? What do you think about loose change? Go ahead.
Well, I don't think it's possible to wake people up if they're mainstream, if they're believers. This is a philosophical issue. It's not
that there's big ass shit going on in 9/11, dude.
It's not about facts. Facts don't work on believers. It doesn't work. I don't think it matters. I don't think they're reachable. And I'm not going to entertain. Like, they should have to pay me like a therapist to pull them out of their psychosis. I think the only individuals worth focusing on are the skeptics who've already figured out the extent of the fakery, and we need to aggregate those. That's my focus now. I am no longer trying to, quote, wake people up, because it's a lost cause, and it's not their fault. But they have accepted the premise that what is on the screen is a representation of what's happening in the real world, and if there was any kind of fakery, the news would tell us. It's like they don't realize the extent of the fakery, and you can't wake somebody up with facts if their worldview isn't based on facts. Like, I think it's a lost cause.
Yeah, but if we present it in the perfect way where it's just so obvious that these people are just crisis actors, not Harley Boy. I'm talking about like everyone else that's on all the footage is out there just looks like actors. But we present it to a way where we could invigorate a new generation of truthers, dude, just by seeing that something was so fake. Not even using the word crisis actors. I'm just talking about just like showing that it's just fantasy that was presented.
It's a context thing, because you can say, hey, this is a fake event, and this is a fake event, and this is a fake event. But
why is the stream saying infinite call, infinite jack? Fuck these people. You know what? We're having a conversation here, and someone's trying to talk shit on the lucid streams. It's not cool, dude.
Okay,
you and I have history.
Now, I know what you're saying here. So what I think is this: when we do AutoHoaxCon, we will have to construct like 30-second
lucid streams. Gematria fucking faggot, dude. So go ahead.
Okay, what I'm saying is, we can break. We're not an echo chamber here. And you can break spells, but when you break that spell, you have to supply it with something. So you can't just tell them this event was fake. You have to be able to show them, hey, this was fake, and it's because this is how media actually operates. And then you have to show them, this is how we can conclusively show you it was a closed movie set. There were all these drills. There were 1,200 police cadets who were performing as mass casualty operators. This is how mass casualty simulation drills work. This is the nature of propaganda and perception management. So it's just a bigger conversation, but I think we can do it. Well, and what you're talking about, yes, that's what AutoHoaxCon #1, I think, needs to happen. And I'm planning for June, if not May. But I think we need to get all of our best ideas in one place so that when we do point out an obvious crisis actor, the person is led here into skepticism and not into Trutherville and Judy Woods and space lasers and all these other conspiracy rabbit trails.
Right. Well, that was the whole charter for IPS. Right?
Yeah, and we're still on the same track. We still really are. I'm more focused now on gathering the skeptics and creating a quarantine, like basically a wall of wrenches, a phalanx of wrenches against all of the believers and alt media programmed alternative believers because they're a hindrance to progress. And they're
Well, so are the gematria tarts like Lucid, and everyone else. Like someone called it Jake's show yesterday. Jake the asshole. They called it. It was like something about the football pregame or whatever. I think that's where I heard about the Elon commercial. And this guy's like, "There's not gonna be a winner. They're gonna nuke the fucking Superdome or whatever, and that's just the way it's gonna be." And I'm gonna pray that it doesn't happen. And Jake's like, "Well, I don't think that's gonna happen. And if that does happen, you predicted everything on Earth, and you're a gematria motherfucker top dog, right? Of course, it didn't happen." And the gematrias would be like, "Well, no, because it was a 33 plus a 26 at the halftime, and that makes this and that." You know, that's Lucid. That's what he did. You know, all this auto hoax con was like the past few you've done is all about like gematria shit, dude. Like, move on. Let's just like auto hoax some shit, dude.
Yeah, that's a great point. Like, for example, someone had mentioned that Zachary Hubbard and Sloppy Johnny Cercucci were talking about these as blood sacrifices and real events, and they do all these numbers, and I'm like, okay, if they could predict stuff, they should all be Biff Tannen rich. Biff Tannen got rich off of a sports almanac that told him which horses were going to win these races. So if you've got these calculators that tell you what's going to happen in the world, it's like magical calculators, then you should be making a bit more money. Your whole organization should be blowing up. You should be competing with the mainstream. But instead, there's still these small channels who are not really living up to what I think they should be if they really had that power they claim to have. And they don't. It is true that gematria is largely fallacious reasoning, and it's easy to decode. Like, that's what they should decode. Decode the Texas sharpshooter fallacy and how it applies to gematria calculators. So that would be far more worth their time than looking at headlines and crunching numbers to make associations. Like, no, that's after the fact, post hoc. That's it's like it's not falsifiable. That's the problem.
Right. Dude, it's just so annoying, dude. Like the auto hoax cons that you did, they're just a bunch of number shit.
Well, look,
jumbo.
These are all just conferences, but when
let's go 30 years back and play some auto hoax shit, dude. We're an auto hoax con, dude. Let's auto hoax the fucking what's it called? The people going postal. Like pull up old videos. I guess remember back in the day when you call up and talk to people at the museum about the dinosaur bones?
Yes. Yes.
That big shit, dude. Let's do that. Let's call up the postal general inspector and general postmaster and call up, like, you know, forget that. But you get my point. Like, if we were to go retrospect back in auto hoax going postal, okay, that if you go back and watch those videos, they're comical, dude.
Yeah, that's a valid point.
Just like 9/11.
They didn't start faking stuff with 9/11 or with Sandy, whatever. The fakery is as old as media because media picked up where religious fakery left off. And if you don't know this already, all of the religious miracles of all religions were all fake. And it's just a way of controlling the masses with illusions of power, illusions of connection to a godhead, a divine mandate, divine right to rule. It's all based on fraud. Nothing's changed. But you're right. We do need to do something with this. And that is my whole point here. We can't move forward until we've separated from all the alt media types with their revelation of the method, their gematria, their Mandela effects, their simulationism. All that stuff is there to prevent people from arriving at objectivity. But we are there. We just need to get the rest of those who are already skeptical to the same place, and then we move on. And one of the milestones to this progress has been the print tabloid emerging. I have a copy of the first issue here, but the IPS Insider does represent, I think, the starting point of what I consider to be a third branch of media. Mainstream, alternative, and what we are. And what we are needs to get bigger first. And then we can go ahead and steamroll over the world stage. And that's the plan. I call it the Insider because we're going to figuratively speaking, burn down the world stage infrastructure, in the minds of the believers.
So where do we start, dude? Because I'm ready, man. I've got a press pass circa 2020 or whatever, whenever we started this shit.
Okay, good.
And speaking of which, dude, those fuckers that Tatiana Turner, dude, I had the homicide detective call me the other day. It's been 3 years, dude, 4 years since I pressed charges on that bitch. And a homicide detective called me, dude, and said, "We're still working on the case. You're a prime witness to take this bitch down." Okay, so it's not over. Okay, it's been a while, but the case is still going.
Yeah, it's slow. It's slow. I mean, my case against Goldfinch is still going. And the next step here is to, well, I'm kind of like reticent to say on live streams. I reserve this for our internal chats with the press pass holders because I don't want to telegraph what happens next. Because we do have enemies and opponents and opposition and people who hate skepticism, who hate the fact that we're speaking the truth here, that the only real conspiracy is the co-opting of all entertainment for the purposes of brainwashing. That's like the only conspiracy worth pointing out, but it's so big that if you're in the box, you can't see it. But I have some ideas on how to proceed. So I'm glad you're thinking along this track here, because I'm not interested in running circles around, the same area. Alternative media regurgitating mainstream talking points never goes anywhere. Everything's on repeat.
Let's go back 40 years. Let's start auto hosting some weird ass shit, just for fun. Like let's make IPS fun again. Let's like make IPS auto hoax again. Like we gotta bring back the old school hoaxing. Call up the museum. Do the what were those guys?
But we need numbers, though. What I'm saying is we need numbers. Like, for example, we can confront any big story. We can confront anything, but you have to have numbers. I do have plans, but like I said, I don't want to talk about it live. I have extensive plans. I don't want to talk about it live for a lot of reasons. But
I get you. All right, bro.
Like if you hit me up behind the scenes, I'll tell you what I have as far as the next stage. But one, the people who aren't a part of it will only be naysayers. And then two, we don't want to telegraph to the entities that we're looking at what our objectives are. You have to think about it. If we have 10,000 people here, we could inflict billions of dollars of damage in the form of damage control expenses. Think about how much money it costs the MSM to repair holes in its big stories. And, before you feel bad for Alex Jones...
Why are we entertaining?
Like, listen to this. Like, before you feel bad for Alex Jones and the money. No, listen.
I'm talking about a damn gematria crap.
No, but I don't do gematria. Look, I've never done gematria. I'm not a gematria person. I don't know. Gematria is not my thing.
Dude,
never has
been.
The
whole auto hoax con the last time was like this guy like hijacked your fucking feed and was talking about numbers, and I called it out, and he goes, "Oh. No, we need to know where we start before we go to the next concept." I'm like, no, dude, stop talking about fucking numbers, dude.
I don't know.
Super Bowl's over.
I don't know. I didn't even watch the Super Bowl. Look, gematria, I exposed this more than a year ago after the last Super Bowl prophecies didn't come true. I said, look, Taylor Swift is still alive. They didn't get nuked. And at that point, I said, I'm going to block all these people. Hey, look, Tim Osman's in the chat. He says, some drunk dude. I don't know who he's talking.
Fuck you, Tim Osman. You know what? You and I go way back, bitch. You know what? I called you out for hijacking IPS's name, so fuck you.
All right. Well, hey, I'm glad you called though. I'm glad you called. We're on the same sheet.
Still. No. I'm glad to see him around if he's really here. Oh yeah. You know what? I'm glad to see you here, dude. Because I'm still here. I'm still fucking here.
Yeah, I hadn't seen Tim Osman in a while. I've been wondering what his take was going to be on the final experiment. What's your take on the final experiment? Do you think they did it in the Vegas Dome?
Go ahead, call in, bitch. Call in. Let's hear your little voice. Come on, you used to call in back in the day. Osman, come on, call in, bro.
Okay,
I'll call you out right now.
phones are open. If he wants to call in, the
You know
number's
what?
on the screen.
Hey, next time call in. IPS, Godspeed. Bye.
Okay, thank you for the call. All right, Tim Osman, if you'd like to call in, phone lines are open. 505-510-4226, and that was Infinite Jack. Again, thanks for the call, Infinite Jack. And he makes some valid points. A truth reveal goes nowhere. It's reactionary. It's knee-jerk, low information disbelief versus low information mainstream belief. I mean, it's just no better. It's like Plato's cave, shadows on the wall, alt media, alternative shadows on the wall. I consider them to be two sides of the same coin, but we're not there. We haven't been there in a long time. Conscious Reality says, did you see the X in the field or did you already discuss it? I had a caller who mentioned it, and 33rd yard line, 6 minutes, 51 seconds into the halftime show. I'm going to watch it after this live stream. Flozik says, man wants some beef. Well, he was, if you didn't know, the caller was talking about an incident when he was covering a protest. He's a press pass carrier for the Infinite Plane Radio Press Club. He went to a BLM related protest. He got into a confrontation with one of the organizers. She flipped out, whacked him with the baton, broke his phone, and maced him. And then she got in her car and she ran over some people. And that was shortly after, that was during the summer of 2020. Lasers says, huge probability the final experiment is fake AF. I wonder why they care so much about people who don't believe. You know, I'm watching Jaren's channel and Fight the Flat Earth, Simon, Dan, McToon, and they're just all about why don't they believe us? It's like, I don't know if they are that clueless, but they just have no credibility. They're not trustworthy anyway. They're too emotional about it. Scientists aren't supposed to be emotional. You know, they're supposed to be dispassionate. They're all biased. Some of them were betting money on it. And then the whole vape thing. If it wasn't for Witsit Gets It vaping, I don't think there would have been any questions. But as far as do I think it was real or fake, they really did something. Did they go to Antarctica? Is it outside the scope of fakeability? I would say we're entering this territory where some things are, well, everything's fakeable to an extent. Like, yeah, you could fake pandas, but not at scale. And the size of an operation to fake a trip to Antarctica, like the scope of it, it's pretty big. But don't limit yourself by incredulity. If there are other factors to consider, for example, NASA's budget. Because if the final experiment was faked, and this is an if, it's a hypothetical. If it was faked, who do you think was faking it? Not Will Duffy. No. If it was faked, it was necessarily faked by the PSYOP Entertainment Complex's biggest wing, the NASA. NASA does world stage special effects. And with that budget, anything is technically fakeable. But I don't think they could have bought Jaren out. I don't think all the money in the world would get that guy to lie. So I'm just going to trust the experiment. I'm going to trust Jaren. That's what he wants us to do. And if I was the one who went down to Antarctica, I would say, don't trust me. I'm just a Mason with Satan tattooed on my chest. Don't trust me. Trust the facts that I present. Because if they are facts, they're going to be facts. Whether I'm a Mason, Illuminati puppet, or if I'm just some YouTuber. Facts are facts. But for some reason, they were not able to convince a lot of flat earth believers that they actually went. And what is the cause of this? Is it skepticism? Is it something else? Is it orthodoxy? Is it clinging to some model? Is it just a cult? Interesting questions. But to me, I don't have a settled model. I never bought into this either or. Like, oh, if we can't debunk the globe, we must therefore accept it. And I don't think that's how it works. I think the globe has become tantamount to a God construct. Like, it may well be a ball. We may well be in a heliocentric system. I don't really care. Like, I understand the story. I like it. I read a ton of science fiction these days. Space travel and everything. I think it's cool. But do I believe that the globe represents a complete model? I'm going to say no. Not until space is adequately explained. And if you believe that space has been adequately explained, then you're not aware of the special effects. And too many believers will not acknowledge special effects. They don't want to acknowledge the fakery. And why would they? Nascitology is a religion. Believers in religions never disbelieve their own myths. They're not going to say, nah, my guy didn't walk on water. Of course they're going to stick to that. They have to stick to these myths. And I'm arguing here that the moon landing is a contemporary myth. It was achieved with movie magic, not science. And I think it was more about what I would consider to be a religion, a worldview, than really exploration or travel or something concerned with mankind's future destiny as a multiplanetary species. And, you know, Buzz Aldrin and Neil Armstrong on the moon. Neil Armstrong did a ceremony on the moon. They actually performed a Catholic communion with bread and wine on the surface of the moon, if you believe it. But I think that has more to do with the whole thing. It's more religion and pageantry than anything else. I think the space program, is actually about controlling the space between your ears. It's about your worldview. 777 says, Jaren's whole team is going through another humiliation ritual hazing. Yeah, I think so too. Imagine having to share a tent with Mick Toon. Like, what a hazing that would be. But again, I don't think you have to settle for a model. And to say it's complete is also kind of reductionist. Like, oh, we're just meat suits. We're just evolved apes on a dead planet, and this is the end of the story. And it's like, no, it's not complete. If we have a soul, if we have an eternal spirit, an immortal aspect, a non-corporeal aspect that gets condensed into matter, then any scientific model that doesn't include that is not complete. And science right now can't record or measure this stuff. So, you know, I'm comfortable with question marks. I don't pretend to have all the answers, and that's what a complete model is. I'm more interested in the model we use day by day. Like, I don't think about, oh, I better consider the curve of the earth on my way to work today. Not a problem for me, not an issue for me. The model that I'm concerned with more is the model of the world as we experience it, insofar as our shared model has been tampered with through mass media writ large. And media, again, is the dominant world religion. That black box, your smartphone, that is, for all intents and purposes, the holy book that unites us all and synchronizes all of us around the same God constructs. And it's reinforced with every major ceremony, like a Super Bowl, every major psyop that moves the whole world. That reinforces it. It's all about synchronizing us. Drinkwater says, Samael is the devil. I learned that from playing Doom. Oh, yes. Another name for... synonymous, right? But isn't Samael specifically... I think it means venom. Venom of God. Wasn't that the angel they sent to kill... Was it Moses? There was some story. Interesting stories. I think it's all interesting stories. Like, I'm not anti-religion necessarily. I mean, I don't like religion as far as like the institutions. I think these are all controlled opposition to spirituality. I think they want you to externalize your spirituality into this state-created God construct. But I find the holy books to be interesting. I find mythology interesting. I like all the stories. I just don't take them literally. And I don't take the mainstream media literally. And if you do, I'd ask you why. I mean, as we've observed on this channel repeatedly for years, I mean, we've just observing, recording, noticing A percentage of the news is fake. That is a fact. We can debate as to what percent. Is it 33%? Is it 66%? Is 1% of the news fake? Because it all matters. Good liars don't lie with every breath. If you're a good liar and you lie strategically to people who trust you when you can get away with it, when you have plausible deniability. Bad liars lie incessantly and nobody trusts them. The mainstream media is actually a very good liar, and they only lie a small percentage of the time. But those lies steer the larger, wider narratives. Those lies don't get challenged, and they go into the history books. So not only are the lies treated as real, but they steered all the real stuff. So looking back, you can say, well, our history is partially fiction, largely influenced by fiction. So what is your basis for believing any of the major stories or believing any of the current news, knowing that they bend our news? Standard operating procedure, systemic fakery. And it's so extensive, it's so pervasive that you can't see it if you're in their Truman Show box. And truthers don't know this stuff. They pretend it's not true, they minimize it. But if you still think there's second shooters, you believe in nukes, you believe in secret space programs, you think Musk is actually saving you from a deep state. Musk is the deep state. Trump is the deep state. These are two of the most obviously and demonstrably, provably meta-scripted fake individuals. We talk about crisis actors all the time. Well, what makes Musk or Trump or any of these world stage characters any less of a crisis actor? I mean, they all participate in the same hoaxes at a much deeper level than the low level actors you see on the TV. Okay, let's see here. Going through your comments. Mike D's in the chat, but for some reason he's blocked here. I can't see his comments. It's too bad. Gondola Wish, have you seen the movie Pi, 1998? Oh, yes. About the mathematician. I'll have to rewatch it. I remember there was a scene where they were playing a game called Go with the black and the white pieces. And I had a conversation about that game. I'll have to pull it up. There was something about Pi I think we talked about recently. I'll rewatch it. Is it a short film? It's where this mathematician reaches this place where he's seeing patterns in the universe and he gets accused of numerology, but he goes from mathematics into numerology. Infinite Plane Radio.
Hey, Tim, this is Nick Finger.
Hey, what's up, Nick Finger? Thank you for calling.
Hey, I just had a few thoughts on things. Been making some notes throughout the week. Haven't been able to catch you live lately, but one thing that the YouTube channel Mindshock, the guy that does the logical analysis on things, he's done this really long multi-episode thing on Columbine, and it seems like that, not to say that the official story is true, but it seems like that probably people actually died there. And I mean, at least from my takeaway, but it seems like that maybe that was still a psyop, but a precursor to these other ones where, they just found out that it was easier to pull these off if people didn't really die. What do you think on that?
I would ask, well, there's a few questions about it, but there's evidence of drills being performed. There was some shady stuff around the story. There's the usual predictive programming, the Matrix movie. There's stuff in there. For example, Dylan Klebold is born on 9/11, and he fantasized about crashing a plane into a building. So there's quite a lot about the whole Columbine thing that suggests it's all fakery. I don't have any reason to think any of it's real, but I'm interested to hear about this because it seems to me that all of these events take place within a fictional universe. And if you kill people for real, you take what would be a propaganda event and turn it into a crime. And here's the thing. It doesn't just involve the school. It involves politicians. It involves the police, the EMTs. It involves every entity that's involved in it would then be culpable in real murder, tantamount to a war crime. So I think it's highly unlikely anybody dies, but what evidence do you have for that? I am interested.
So, I've been, thinking about it a few different ways. Well, one, there's like a 24,000 page report that's got for it all to have been written that a script ahead of time. I mean, it's a pretty in-depth script. And what I'm saying is that maybe that set wasn't so close, and that people that were doing drills, all these other incidents where there's drills happening, just because people were doing the drills and they go and respond to a event, they don't know all the pieces of the puzzle, and to them, they were, maybe to some of them, maybe to some of them not, but there's organizers, but that a lot of these first responder people, it doesn't make them in on it. They were doing a drill that quote unquote went live, and they weren't that close to the center of the action. They don't really actually know what happened, but to them it was real too.
Interesting. Well, I'll have to look, like the caller before you said, we have to retro auto hoax. We need to go back and re-examine some of these things and see if the evidence in support of the mainstream story holds up. So I'm not just going to blanketly say everything's fake. I'm not someone who just has a low information disbelief about things. I like to be informed about why I don't believe something. So I'll examine it again. I'll take a look. I don't think...
I'm not saying that it wasn't fake. I'm just saying that 9/11 seems like it was a fairly close set. What I'm saying is that, and other schools that you're not allowed to talk about seem like they weren't even open at the time. But this high school, it's a pretty big high school. A lot of people went there, and it was weird. It was what they call an open campus. So the kids didn't have to be there all the time. They could come and go as they pleased. And it seems like there was a lot of people hanging out at this school. Maybe.
I'll take a look, because if it wasn't for the Matrix coming out right before and people comparing them to the Matrix, if it wasn't for the KMFDM and the Marilyn Manson stuff, I'd be inclined to think that maybe it was possibly a false flag and patsies. It would seem like that, but it has all the hallmarks of being hoaxy. But I'll take a look at it for sure. I'll go back and look. I have some literature on that specific event, and we were recently talking about it because those characters are referenced by subsequent shooters like Audrey Hale, for example.
Right. And one other thing, if you're going to check out the Mindshock channel, somebody had mentioned the other day to look into Steven Seagal, and Mindshock did this probably between the several episodes, over 30 hours of a deep dive into Steven Seagal. And he seems like a character that's primed to come back onto the world stage as some type of hero role or something. That dude, the amount of things he was doing, had his hands in.
Yeah, Steven Seagal, wasn't he LARPing as a cop? And
there was a reality TV show, but he actually, he was deputized. Then he was doing all this border patrol stuff outside of the TV thing.
Yeah, it reminds me of Elvis. Still, remember how Elvis went to Nixon, gave him a gun, and then he's like, "I want to fight crime. I want to fight the communists trying to take over. And so Elvis is given a badge. Now he's with the FBI, with the CIA, ATF. Like he's given all these, he's deputized. He's like this super agent now. And they humored him for some reason. But there's something like that with Steven Seagal.
Yeah, except now he's, since, I don't know how many years, maybe 5, 8 years, he's been living in Russia, and he's like one of Putin's good buddies now or something. And it just like, I don't know, like that guy's life story is pretty unbelievable. But on Bruce McGuire on the Mindshock channel, he brings the receipts. He goes through and he shows all these old videos, and he states all the claims people have against Steven Seagal and all the claims that Steven Seagal has ever made in public. And he goes, he goes back and through, all different types of stuff, and shows all the supporting receipts, and it's pretty in-depth and pretty amazing.
So Seagal's kind of like a Paul Bunyan, like he's like a mythological character, would you say? Or do you think there's more?
Yeah.
Because that's kind of what I got out of it. Like, I think he talked about he had this trench coat that was made out of some kind of bulletproof Kevlar, and it turned out to be fake. I don't know. I got to look back. But I think that he might be an entirely, like almost like a movie character, but he's been blended with the real world. There might be something in this.
Definitely a movie character, but also definitely probably the most incredible martial artist that's ever lived. Like the style, I mean, I'm not into the fighting arts, but like this guy effortlessly just renders everybody else useless in the room that is trying to attack him. I mean, that's what he was first, was this like, in his style, he's got like he's the first Westerner to ever have a dojo in Japan. Like that, and that was when he was young, before he was a movie star.
Okay, so it's Mindshock. I'll look into Mindshock and I'll check out this Steven Seagal thing. I'll see what's there. Interesting information. And I'll look into Columbine. And I'm going to look back and see what I found, my original research when I was looking into it. And perhaps we'll arrive at something. There are some people who think that Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold were actors who came back as Trey Parker and Matt Stone, from South Park. And I've seen the resemblance, but anyway. Appreciate the information. I'll look into that, and I'll look into Mindshock's channel. Thank you for the recommendation.
All right. Thanks, man.
Yep, call back anytime. All right, everyone, that's Nick Fingar. And yeah, for the record, the President of the United States meets the King of Rock. Elvis collected law enforcement badges and ultimately sought a badge from the Bureau of Narcotics and Dangerous Drugs. And he believed that drugs were being used by the communists to mind control America. And he was going to fight it. Which kind of makes sense why he would come back as Trump to fight the deep state, if you follow that narrative that Trump is Elvis, which I don't. Anyway, thank you for the calls. Thank you for the comments. Interesting times. And I'm going to watch the halftime show, and I'll have a full review of it tomorrow. So thanks for taking the time. This is Autohoaxology.
I don't believe in chemtrails. I don't live in truth. Just because you saw it on the screen doesn't make it real. I don't take the red pill. I don't take the blue pill. I just choose to follow my dreams. Autohoax and chill. I stepped off the world stage and I've moved away from all the fake outrage and the hearsay. And I don't give the time of day to those that naysay. Because they got a backhand, so the mind day. I stepped away from the game entirely. I won't be be caught up in their lame dichotomy. I've stepped away from the cage entirely. I'm free today and my mind's been set by reading out of Hoaxology. Out of the control system finally. I know where to go if you follow me. Cause I've been reading out of Hoaxology. Nothing can bother me out of Hoaxology. Won't put this green before it's blasphemy. I won't become another mind war casualty. I came up out the realm of possibility to take the helm of this reality. Cause I've been chillin' reading out of Hoaxology, rejecting all the expectations of the auto-believer, to become a new creation on the raft of receivers. Standing on the sword of truth, I stab the backs of deceivers, demanding burdens further proof from all the hacks and believers. I stepped away from the game entirely. I won't be caught up in the lame dichotomy. I stepped away from the cage entirely. I'm free today and my mind's been set by reading out of Hoaxology. Out of the control system finally. I know where to go if you follow me. Cause I've been reading out of Hoaxology. Nothing can bother me out of Hoaxology. Won't put the screen before it's blasphemy. I won't become another mind war casualty. I came up out the realm of possibility to take the helm of this reality. Cause I've been chillin' reading out of Hoaxology. Suspending all the judgment, you won't get a reaction. Won't defend it, I won't budge until I get all the facts in. I won't argue with the bots about the next current thing. Crying over the fake bodies like a bitter death clinger.